Hi, welcome to the LP channel. I'm Helen, this is Pete from LP Metal Detecting, and that on the table is the long-awaited XP Deus 2. This only arrived today, so we've only had it for a few hours. So we've invited Gary Blackwell from XP along today to tell us a little bit more about the machine. Thanks for joining us, Gary. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me along.
No, you're welcome. We've got loads of questions to ask you about the machine, but like I say, Pete's had it for a couple of hours now, and I'd like to know what he thinks of it, and I'm sure you'd like to know what his first impressions of the machine are too.
Absolutely, Pete. Yeah, so what are your first impressions about this machine? Can you give us your initial feedback?
Yeah, so when I opened the box, to start with, I can tell straight away that XP have taken the things that everyone loves from XP Deus, kept those for Deus 2, and then obviously made the technological leaps, if you like, in terms of the multi-frequency, the rugged remote design, the larger screen on the headphones. So you can tell that XP have listened to their customers, taken what's great about Deus, and just made those tweaks for hopefully better performance, but we'll get on to that.
Interesting. Thanks for your feedback there. I appreciate that. And we're getting feedback from all the early users, which is pretty much along the same lines. You know, it is a Deus, but it's different. You know, that we've addressed a lot of the questions people have been asking.
Gary, you've already got a couple of smashing YouTube videos up walking us through this new Deus 2 machine. We'll link to those. We'll link to your YouTube videos at the end of this as well. I guess kind of the purpose for this chat today really is to ask a few questions about the machine for people who are either newish to the hobby or who've never used a Deus before, so they might not be familiar with some of the features. The opening line on your video, Pete and I were watching it.
Yeah, so you talk a lot about it's not just a multi-frequency machine, it's fast multi-frequency, and that's obviously something new to XP. So could you just tell us a little bit more about what the fast multi-frequency is, and most importantly, what that means for someone out on the fields, on the beach, using the machine day to day?
Okay, well, let's go back to the Deus 1 very quickly here, because the Deus 1 is renowned for being a really fast machine when it comes to ancient sites. It sort of cuts between the iron and finds the targets. The reactivity speed on it is very, very fast, and it would be wrong for us to release another machine which wasn't as fast as the Deus in the same situation. So traditionally, multi-frequency machines take that little bit longer to analyse a signal, but what XP have done is they've made it as fast as the Deus 1. So this took some doing. So basically, Deus 2 is as fast as the Deus 1 with the added advantages of obviously the multi-frequencies.
So when it comes to the multi-frequencies, now with Deus and a few other single frequency machines in the past, you could obviously select what frequency you want to be in, whether that's 4 kilohertz, 15 kilohertz, whatever it may have been. So what's the advantage to running them simultaneously, if you like, rather than having to select that frequency separately?
The main advantage is it opens the machine up to a wide range of difficult detecting solutions. For example, your wet sand, your magnetic ground, difficult targets. So being a fast multi-frequency, we can better categorize particular targets or ground conditions in order to eliminate or accept them. So the fast multi-frequency is opening up a whole new detecting world for us when it comes to wet sand and difficult grounds.
So if somebody's watching this video because they want to pick up the hobby or they've never had a Deus before, is there just a press and go function on this while they're learning about the machine? Can a complete amateur pick this machine up and there's a button that they can press and they're detecting?
Absolutely, and this is the beauty of the Deus 2. You can just switch it on, press the general button, which is your program 1, and not have to worry about anything. You're good to go. But as you evolve with the machine, you've got all the features there where you can dig a little bit deeper, making custom programs, custom adjustments, things like that. So a complete beginner could quite simply just turn this machine on and start detecting.
But also, for people who are more advanced, you breezed through this machine in your YouTube videos. It is very user-friendly, isn't it?
Absolutely. I've been living and breathing this machine for several months throughout the beta testing, so I kind of know it inside out. And we wanted to make the menus very fluid, very understandable, so people could get into the bare bones of it without having too much of a headache, really. And I think we've done a good job. 12
programs in total so far on the machine. We'll have a quick chat about some of those features. Much excitement about the bottle cap rejector in program 5, which is park mode. Brilliant.
I absolutely love the park mode. Bottle cap reject is something people have been asking for many, many years, especially the park hunters over in the US, where you've got such a wide range of bottle caps. It's an absolute nightmare. I didn't realise how bad it was until I actually detected it in the US, and I think if I had to dig bottle caps all day, I'd be buying a fishing rod. So XP have really done a good job on this bottle cap reject, which goes from 1 to 5. So you don't just blank out bottle caps in general. You can add how much discrimination you want towards bottle caps. So it's a nice little feature, and I think we're going to be hearing quite a lot about that in the future.
Yeah, but you know how to make your fortune, don't you?
Go on.
Ring pull rejector.
I wish, but you never know. One day.
All right, program 7, the Deus mono single frequency. Now, in your video, you said that there were some added features that you would address later. We're impatient. We want to know what these are now.
Not so much added features per se, but some nice little touches. For example, Deus 1 is your conventional Deus mono. So it's a single frequency, but you can choose from 4 to 45 kilohertz with offsets if you've got bad EMI. Now, with the Deus 2, you've got an automatic channel select, so you just press the button and it automatically winds through the channels and looks for a clean band. Now, we can also use this feature on the Deus mono, so you just press the button. Although you're in a single frequency, it will go through and find a cleaner band. And the second advantage of this Deus mono mode compared to your Deus 1 is multi-frequency tends to need a little bit more power to run the multi-frequency. So we've got slightly bigger batteries in there. And when you're in the Deus mono mode, all that lovely power is going into just one frequency. So theoretically, it should give you a little bit more punch.
And one of the unique selling points of the Deus 2, it's not just that it's waterproof, fully submersible up to 20 feet.
Absolutely. And before we go into that, I'm just saying to everyone, you won't catch me in a wetsuit. It's just not going to happen. 20 meters, not 20 feet. So it's 66 feet, actually. So, yeah, fully submersible. Because it's a Bluetooth connectivity, you're still going to need an aerial kit from the coil to the controller just to transmit that signal. But what XP have done, they've made a nice, neat little fitting on the top of the controller so that your aerial kit snaps into place there. And when you buy your Deus 2, you get this aerial kit in the package. When you're diving, you've got two little plugs. You've got a grey plug and a red plug, which go into the bottom of the controller. Now, the grey plug is up to 1 meter, and if you're going deeper than 1 meter, you switch it out for the red plug, and that's all to do with the pressure on the system when you're at depth. But we don't recommend you use the red plug inland because the speaker might sound a bit funny, so just swap it out for the grey plug if you're inland.
And you've already had some of the people that have been testing the machine for you panicking because when you put it onto the diving mode, so the screen locks.
It does, and I've done it myself. I've had a few emails late at night with people panicking. Okay, you've got your conventional diving program, which is program number 10, but also in the options menu, as you scroll through, you'll see a diving icon come up, and automatically you just press that to see what it does. Well, that locks the screen so you can't make any adjustments, you can't turn the controller off, panic sets in. But it's really easy to eliminate this lock mode. You'll see 3 little padlocks just under the screen there, and you just press the 3 keys, option, menu, ground balance, and you'll see the 3 padlocks unlock and you're good to go. It's a simple thing, but it's worth knowing just in case you're in the field and you press that, it could ruin your day.
That's going to save Pete a few emails.
Yeah, absolutely.
It certainly will, yeah.
Pete made a really good point as well. If you're diving at 20 metres down, pressure.
Yeah, so the water pressure will actually action the keys. So yeah, you need that lock on there. Otherwise you'll be 20 metres down and suddenly you're turning volume on and off and changing programs and doing all your stuff.
Yeah.
Quite possibly, yeah. Yeah, but we've still got audio functions and screen functionality at those depths, which is pretty much unheard of on a metal detector.
Another thing that you mentioned, there's a wet sand eliminator in the beach mode. Again, for people who are researching the hobby, what does wet sand do to a detector? Because also salt, you mentioned salt as well. Obviously, if you're on the beach, those two go hand in hand. So what does it do to your detector?
Okay, if we're looking at the grand scale of things, you've got 2 ends of the target range. You've got conductive ground and you've got magnetic ground, where your conductive is your salt, your seawater. Magnetic is your mineralized ground, which is volcanic type stuff. So somewhere in the middle is where we generally detect inland, but the salt tends to give a signal when the detector passes over it because it's conductive. For example, if you're searching in the surf and the waves are lapping over your coil, that's pretty much the same as you passing a target over the coil. So the Deus 2 eliminates the reaction from this salt, but you've also got a further adjustment called salt sense. It's just like your conventional sensitivity, where you can adjust how reactive you want the machine to the salt signal. So if you have it really high, you've got maximum sensitivity, and you're going to be finding those small chains and tiny bits of gold on the wet sand. But being too high may give you a little bit of false signals coming through, a little bit too much information. So those people who don't want to hear all this information, they can settle the machine right down by lowering the salt sensitivity. And also in the beach modes, you've got magnetic sand on or off. Magnetic sand is your black sand, so you can now eliminate that as well, which has always been a difficult task with any detector.
Something as well to talk about, learning about interference in general. It's so important to people who are new to the hobby, because if you didn't know, you wouldn't necessarily understand why, if you switched your machine on, that it's just chattering to you the whole time. It can be from power lines, underground cables, phone masts, electric fences, etc., etc. Pete, you've had phone calls, haven't you, from people who've switched their machines on indoors and then say there's something wrong with it, it's going off.
Oh yeah, I mean Christmas is the best time for that, because they get their new machine on Christmas Day and the first thing they do, take it out of the box, build it, turn it on, and then email us Christmas Day afternoon, why is my machine going off, it's faulty, but obviously there's an element of EMI in that, so electromagnetic interference with Wi-Fi, electric cables at home. But with the fast multi-frequency, is that allowing you to do things like the frequency auto scan and these new features that are coming on due to the new technology?
Absolutely. I mean, the perfect metal detector will make the ground invisible and make EMI invisible. Now, if you can sort of bring all that into the one mixing pot, you're going to have a pretty good machine, because all it needs to do then is concentrate on the good signals. So yeah, the frequency scan goes all the way through the frequencies really, really quickly, and it will select a clean channel. So before you start detecting, it's always good practice to do a frequency scan, or just to make sure that EMI isn't going to be a problem. But I agree with you, Pete, that's probably one of our biggest questions, is my coil's faulty or my detector's faulty because it's making so much noise. There's certain EMI which you can't get rid of, and that is from electric fences, that pulse EMI. Yeah. You'll never get rid of that. But if you've got really, really bad EMI, your best option is to go into the Deus mono, so you're only looking at moving one frequency for a cleaner channel.
And that was something I was going to touch on, Gary, because obviously, as well as the fast multi-frequency, there is still the option to use single frequency choices if you want to do that. And there's certainly still a place for that in certain circumstances, isn't there?
I absolutely agree. I think Deus mono or single frequency detectors will always have their place. They're never going to be obsolete. There's always people who are going to like single frequency machines for their own reasons. And personally, I think I will still be using the single frequency as and when I feel I need to.
This is a question from me. Watching your video, you talked about the XY screen. Now, this is something that unless you own a Deus, you actually don't know what an XY screen is. So can you explain this for us, please?
Okay, yeah, that's very true, Helen. I never thought about that because no other manufacturer really uses the XY screen, do they? It's an uncluttered screen. It's a very clean screen. And when you get a good target, the XY, you get a straight line from bottom left to top right. If you get a bad target or iron, it's bottom right to top left. Some misshaped iron will give sort of a series of squiggles and things like that, but you get a really good lot of information from the XY screen, and a lot of people prefer that, especially if you're coin hunting, because if you're coin hunting, a coin tends to give an exact straight line, the perfect textbook
Gary,
straight line.
we're all coin hunting.
I don't know. Some of us are artifact hunting or just general hunting. You've got meteorite hunters out there. It's endless, really, isn't it? If we just stuck to coins, I think it'd be boring, Helen, don't you?
I do, but I'm still not going to walk over what I think is a coin signal looking for something else.
Okay, then, let me give you a scenario. What do you think a Roman fibula, what sort of signal would a Roman fibula give you? Would it be a straight line? Would it be a perfect number? Would it be a perfect sound?
Well, that's the problem with a lot of artifacts, isn't it, Gary? And that's would kind of lead me into another question in a second. But with artifacts, they tend to be made of multiple different materials, and that's why detectors really struggle to give that accurate target ID, whereas a coin is made of gold, silver, whatever it may be, so it's a lot easier for the machine to know. But what I've noticed from watching your video and having a quick play around with this, albeit at LP rather than out in the field this morning, the target ID seems to be a lot more stable on this. Is that, again, something that's linked in with the fast multi-frequency?
It is, Pete, and you'll notice straight away that the Deus 2, the target ID locks on at depth really well. It's quite a confident target ID. So again, the fast multi-frequencies now allowed us to better categorise targets, so we can eliminate them really easy. For example, I've just talked about the wet sand. We can notch that out, eliminate it. Coke, we can notch that out, eliminate it. If we really wanted to get clever, because the target ID is so precise, we can notch out certain bits of coke and find other bits of coke. So it's got such a fine range of adjustments. And again, your target ID will be much more reliable and better at depth.
The built-in pinpointer with it, I know that some people, I love the pinpointers in the machine. Pete never uses it. This one's got a new feature where it shrinks the target.
Pinpoint puts your machine into all metal, which means there's no discrimination whatsoever. So if you go into all metal and you track over a target, that will give you an audio response based on the size of the target. For example, if you go over a drain pipe or something, that will give you a short audio response one way and a long audio response as you go down the pipe. Now, the Deus 2 pinpointer has an AT feature, which is an auto-tune feature, where it automatically bullseyes the target. It shrinks the audio right down until you just get a little fine squeak, and that's the centre of your target. It's a nice little feature. You can have it on or off. like I say, if you're tracking pipes and things like that, you turn it off. But for general hunting in the field, it can quickly bullseye down to the smallest bit so you can locate the targets quite easily.
So you get the WS6s with the machine. The bone conductive ones are an optional extra. You bloody love these headphones, don't you, Gary?
WS6s, they're fantastic. They are on a module, so that, like the traditional Deus, the module just sort of comes off the headphones just by simply sliding it off. And then you can put a horseshoe adapter on the back. So as you'll see in a lot of my videos, I just use a little lightweight wired headphones, but the module is actually in my top pocket. So I'm still wireless, but I'm using just little light headphones. The BH01 bone conductive headphones. Now these are an interesting one because they fit just in front of your ears on your actual cheekbones. And you can hear these up to 60 meters down. So you can still hear the audio tones. They're a little bit more bassy, but you can still hear the audio tones. But a word of warning, these are flipping loud. So if you put them on your ears, you'll bloody caramelise your pumpkin, and that's for sure.
So guys, you touched on the WS6s there, and it's kind of an evolution from the WS4s that came with the original Deus. So there's certainly a lot more than just a set of audio headphones, aren't they? Absolutely,
Pete. These headphones are the business because we hear quite a lot about low latency Bluetooth headphones, and they're really not up to XP specs. XP have their own radio link, and it's all made in-house. You can't buy this type of technology over the shelf. So XP make it all in France. And it's 10 times faster than the fastest low latency headphones. So this is why we always recommend that people use official XP headphones, because they're so much faster. And also going back to this WS6 headphones, we can use it as a standalone, as a master, where this module can actually clip onto the stem. So you can have a visual reading of the target ID there. And then you can use one of our cheaper headphones, such as the WS-A2s, which are coming out very soon. And these are just receivers only. These haven't got a menu in them, but they work in exactly the same way as the traditional headphones. You can plug your horseshoe into that, put it in your top pocket, etc. But because they don't have a menu in them, they're a lot cheaper.
Gary, thank you ever so much. I think we've learned tons about this new machine today, thanks to your expertise.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the time.
We look forward to seeing many more of your videos that you'll be putting up on YouTube soon. We will put links up for people to go over and have a look at what you've uploaded so far, because you'll learn so much more. Your walkthroughs are so easy for people to understand, so thank you for that as well, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Helen and Pete. I appreciate the time once again. It's been emotional, so hopefully see you very soon on the next video.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Thanks ever so much for watching. We'll see you soon on the LP
Bye
channel.
for now.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.